Hello, my name is Philip Colglazier, the Executive Artistic Director of the Fort Wayne Civic Theatre. And we have a special presentation coming up in September 12th through the 20th, the musical of 1776, an all-female cast. And we are working to produce this in conjunction with a grant from the National Endowment from the Arts. And we are holding a special panel discussion in conjunction with this to highlight and celebrate the 19th Amendment, the women's right to vote, in honor of suffragettes. And we're doing the all-female cast to emphasize the 19th Amendment as well. And so we're really looking forward to this production, and it is being directed by Leslie Beauchamp. The panel discussion that will take place on the Sunday post the performance on stage at the Fullinger Outdoor Theatre will actually feature the current and former female politicians. So Jill Long Thompson, former U.S. Senate House of Representatives, will be here, as well as Sharon Tucker, City Councilwoman, Michelle Chambers, City Councilwoman, Lana Keesley, City Clerk, and a representative from the League of Women Voters. And they will all serve on the panel. We'll have a lively discussion, Q&A for you to ask questions as well. In addition, with the League of Women Voters, throughout the process, we will have voter registration information for you to register to vote if you have not. This is a nonpartisan panel and a nonpartisan presentation as well. And so we really look forward to having you involved and to learn more about our history and the Declaration of Independence, as well as the 19th Amendment. So please join us for that. The Fullinger Outdoor Theatre has been so kind to work with us to be able to perform at their space in conjunction with support from the Our Foundation. We could not have done it without them.
My name is Pam Karkoski, and I am playing Dr. Benjamin Franklin in Civic's production of 1776, being done at the Fullinger Outdoor Theatre in September. And what has been so neat about being a part of this show, is, especially from an actor standpoint, is it's kind of what we dream of as an actor. It's what you get to do in acting class that you don't really ever get to do on stage, is we get to play men. So not only are we learning about how people behave in 1776, we have to learn how men behave in 1776. And being a founding father, everybody knows the history. Everybody knows these people. So Leslie has encouraged us to do a lot of research, and we have. I've learned so much about Benjamin Franklin that I didn't even know, even from the history books and from grade school. Things that he invented, his childhood. I had no idea that he dropped out of school at the age of 10. He didn't have a formal education after that. He became a printer's apprentice. And that's how he got into the printing business. And that's really where he made his wealth. His doctor, the reason he's called doctor, is those are honorary degrees from Harvard and Yale that he received years later. And the man was brilliant. He was fastidious. Everything he learned by reading. So trying to incorporate his oddities, as well as being a historical figure that, everybody knows and loves, is a challenge. Especially in 1776, he really was not big on being a politician, so to speak. He was elected to the delegation of Pennsylvania, simply because he was so brilliant and well known. But he really didn't have any use for that. Even in John Adams' autobiography, John Adams says that Benjamin Franklin really did nothing. He just and even in the show, he falls asleep during, chamber debates, and he's just really kind of there as a important figure, but he doesn't contribute a lot other than to support John Adams, which is huge, of course, in this show. But it's been so much fun. The cast is old friends that we haven't seen each other for 20 some years. So we're having a great time just working together. It was interesting, on the way down here I was thinking, one of the hardest things about the show is not being able to hug everybody. You get a bunch of women in a room who haven't seen each other and we're such good friends and we can't hug each other. It's so hard. But working with Amy Ross as John Adams, we worked together back in the 80s on a bunch of shows, and it's such a blessing to be working again with Amy. And Tia, who plays Thomas Jefferson, we did Sister Act together, and she just, has a piece of my heart from that show.
My name's Amy Ross, and I am playing John Adams in the Fort Wayne Civic Theatre's production of 1776. I've done quite a bit of research about John Adams. First of all, I started with his biography by David McCullough. Wonderful book. I'm not reading past where the show goes until the show's over, though, just to keep my head focused on where he's at in promoting the colonies becoming their own nation. So I'm focusing on that part of the story. The first thing that jumped out at me doing my research on John Adams is his total devotion to the law. He was a lawyer. He went to Harvard when, at that time, I believe there were only 100 people in his class, maybe, total. So it was a nice, small, prestigious college. But he was totally devoted to the law. So much so that even though from, I want to say, at least the 1760s, when he first started practicing, he recognized that there was a need for the United States to become the United States and to break away from Great Britain. But he also believed so much in the law that he defended the British soldiers that were responsible for the Boston Massacre, something I did not know prior to this. So there was an altercation, sort of a mob scene with some protesters throwing things at some British soldiers, and the protesters got fired upon, and two of them were killed. And even though John Adams believed strongly in the right to protest and what they were protesting against, the occupation of Boston by the British soldiers, he volunteered to defend those soldiers and they got acquitted. So that's how strongly he believed in the law. The other thing that really struck me is even though the other characters in the show, for dramatic purposes, talk about John Adams being obnoxious and disliked, I of course don't see him that way. I see him as, again, just devoted to the law and to what he knows in his heart is right, and willing to devote his life to it. But he also recognized that what they were doing was unprecedented. No colony had ever broken with its parent, at least at that point in history, successfully. And then what would happen after that? This was the other fascinating question. John Adams was very interested in the opportunity that was presented to them to then create their own government. So no kings, not based on the whims of man or political parties, but he believed in a government that was based on the law. Again, he was such a devoted lawyer, and believing that would be what would govern this new nation, was the law. So I'm having a wonderful time doing the show. It's been a favorite of mine. I hate to admit it, but my 6th grade class did take a field trip to see the movie when it was in the theater during the bicentennial, so I just aged myself. And I believe it's been a part of my July 4th celebrations pretty much ever since. I was working on some of my lines the other day, and my adult son started quoting them because that's how often my family has seen this movie. It's my first time being in the show, and obviously having the opportunity as a woman to play John Adams is absolutely fascinating, and what a thrill. So I'm very honored to be a part of this production, and I think audiences are going to be blown away. It's going to be wonderful.
I'm Angela Sahli, the costume designer and shop supervisor at the Civic Theatre. So something that's really interesting about our production of 1776 is that we have an all-female cast. And actually, this is my first show designing around an all-female cast, and it's especially unique because only 2 of the characters in the show are women. So the majority of our cast will be dressed and portraying men, historic men. Something that is very interesting about the research process for this time period, 1776, is looking at fashion of that time. So France was actually the forerunner in setting fashion for that time period, which continued hundreds of years. And then the French couture influenced England, which then influenced the colonies. So if you look at fashion history, all at 1776, you will see a French version, an English version, and then the colonial version. Something that affected the clothing worn in the colonies was the fact that you had to literally ship a lot of fabrics and textiles and clothing pieces and accessories in from other countries on ships. So you would get beautiful silks from India, and even though in America at that time, cotton was being planted and harvested, it wasn't being processed. So you'd actually get cotton shipped in from other countries as well. The kind of fabric that was being produced in the colonies was linen. So standard clothing pieces worn at this time for men would be stockings, breeches, which would fasten below the knee, usually a linen or cotton shirt, a long vest, and a jacket. And so you will see all of those type of pieces worn on our actors in the production as well. Things that affected the choices of what people wore could be their class, the type of work they do, and the climate that they live in. So upper class would have a lot of clothing that would be similar to what was being worn in England because they could afford to ship in those items. However, in the colonies versus England, almost everybody had to be outside more. They were developing their communities and working more outside. So their clothing had to allow for that work. The northern colonies, because it was cooler, were able to wear more layers and things like that and follow the normal fashion tropes for that time. But if you got into the southern colonies like Virginia, in the summertime, they would actually veer away from standard clothing fashions, where they would maybe wear fewer items. They would wear more linen and less elaborate pieces so that they could get more airflow and things like that.
Hi, my name is Tia Hackbush. I am playing the role of Thomas Jefferson. And as you know, he is the one who wrote the Declaration of Independence. So in this show, something that's really cool about this show is that he is actually portrayed completely different than another show that most probably know which one I'm talking about. And he is portrayed as more of the quiet, the more, he keeps to himself, but he definitely knows that he is a talented writer. I did a little research on Thomas Jefferson for the role because I didn't really know a whole lot about Thomas Jefferson. I knew of him more than about him. So I really did some more research and more digging into finding out more of what he was really like, finding out his accomplishments and other really cool things. And after learning all those things, I was just really excited, more excited about this character. And when I got the phone call from Leslie about the show, I was beyond excited. And I could not wait to do the show with all these amazing people here at the Civic. This is actually my first show here at the Civic, so I'm beyond excited. I'm super excited to work with Leslie again. I did some shows at the St. Francis with her and her husband Brad. And so I know them that way, and I actually know Pam. She's the one who's playing Benjamin Franklin, so it's so great to do another show with her again. She's absolutely amazing, truly a delight. And then Amy this is my first time working with Amy, and I think that she is perfect for John Adams. She is absolutely talented and super incredible. Love working beside her. I think that the show is important because it has so much history to it. It has literally our history. It has the Declaration of Independence, our independencies from Britain. Like, it is so important, and it's really relevant to with what's going on right now, because in it talks about slavery. And with everything that's happening right now in the world, I think it's so important to know what our history was and like how it's still relevant today, that all men are created equal. And I think that it's extremely important to bring it up again, because I feel like it's been forgotten, and I think that we need to really step back and take a look at this show and just see, like, yeah, these are our founding fathers. They created this world for us to live in, so we need to take care of it, and we need to be proud of where we come from. So I think this show is truly, truly important, and I think everybody should come see it.
1776 is a really wonderful musical, a Tony Award-winning musical by Peter Stone and Sherman Edwards. And it is about the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's actually about how the Second Continental Congress came up with all of the precise language that was included in the Declaration of Independence. And the musical itself is really fascinating because it humanizes these people who we just read about in history books, and it makes them real. And what's been really amazing for us doing this show with an all-female cast is it's still the same story. It doesn't change the story. We are still approaching it from an actor's point of view. The actors have to do all the same work, whether they are playing a female character or a male character. So that part of it has been really fascinating to kind of see. But what's been really interesting is it broadens the story somehow to let you look at it in just a little bit of a different way. And so we did talk about it early on in the rehearsal process, but we really have just decided that it's no different than early Shakespeare when men played all of the roles. They still approached all of their characters the same way, whether it was a male character or a female character. So we're just kind of coming at it as actors, and the story is the same story. The Declaration still gets signed at the end, so no spoiler alerts. But it's been really wonderful working with these truly amazing actresses in town. We are blessed in this town. I have said that every time I've gotten to work with anybody in this town, because we have an amazingly deep pool of performers in this town. And so it's been really great to work with people a lot of first timers on the Civics stage, which is really exciting. A lot of people who haven't been on the Civic stage for a long time, they're coming back to the stage. So all of that has been really, really exciting to work on this beautiful piece. The music is beautiful. It's so well written. It's just a meal to get to dig into. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece. We have had 3 iterations of our directing process, just because when I first started doing pre-production on this, it was before the pandemic had hit. So I was doing all of my pre-production as if we were doing it at the Arts United Center. And then when the pandemic hit and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to go forward, but thankfully we are getting to perform at the Follinger Center, which we are crazy excited about, to do it outdoors in that beautiful, beautiful space. So that was exciting. So then we had to reimagine it again, and then when we just kept getting all of the different restrictions that the pandemic it necessitated, we have changed it again. But you know what? We are all very flexible, and we're doing. This cast has been really amazing. We've had to change some blocking, but they're just with you the whole way, and it's been really great. We're rehearsing with masks, and one of the other really wonderful things about this particular show, with our all-female cast, and we are, of course, it is the centennial of the women's right to vote, so it was really fascinating, the research that we did for this. The suffragettes early on were not supporters, not all of them, some of them were not supporters of the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote. They thought that they would have a stronger case if they all kind of banded together and got the vote for every American. But it didn't happen. And so there were some suffragettes who they were not keen on the fact that the 15th Amendment happened first. So it's fascinating to see how strong the women are written in this show. And it's fascinating to see how they give strength to their husbands in the show as well. So it's been really a joy to get to work with these ladies and to get to really delve into how we have connected from signing the Declaration to coming full circle here. Now women have the right to vote, and my daughter, who is 18, gets to vote in her very first presidential election. So it's been kind of a very special time for us in our home.